with me. Tom, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine, Vipul. Can you hear me?
I can hear you well. Hopefully the audience can hear us as well. If you wouldn't mind just sort of raising your hands, just so we know that everyone can hear us. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for confirming that. Okay, so where are we? Okay, so we're here to discuss how technology can help us deliver a cost-effective bookkeeping service, and I'm joined today by Tom Port from AutoEntry. Just for the benefit of those who perhaps aren't operating through their computers, there is a way of getting sound through phone, so just follow the brief instructions on here, but regardless, this will be available for viewing on video in the next 48 hours. So okay, so so I'm just gonna, if you do mind, bear with me a second. Okay, so a little about me, not too much, just for the benefit of those who've not heard me on any webinars recently. I'm Vipul Sheth. I'm a chartered accountant, chartered tax advisor, trained with a regional firm before joining EY and KPMG, and I started Advanced Track almost 15 years ago in 2003. So welcome to you all. As I said, the recording will be available, and for anyone who's got questions, please use the Q&A feature. So in terms of what we really wanted to talk about, and it will be a conversation between us, I thought this was a great sort of way of kind of setting the scene. And I read this, not this Sunday, the previous Sunday, Sunday Times. It's the guy who runs Lloyd's of London. And it's probably true of lots of accountancy firms. And Tom, you can tell me whether you agree or not, but I'm just going to read it out. As long as you're stuck in both analog and digital, you get no benefits, but all the costs. Tom, would you kind of say that that's probably where a large proportion of our accounting profession is today?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I totally agree with that, Vipul. You know, what we're seeing is that a lot of the practices that are engaging with us or have actually been engaging with us for quite a while have a foot in both camps. And that can be sort of, for me anyway, it can be somewhat bewildering because half the practice might be looking to do sort of some things around automation, but then half the practice is sort of in the traditional mindset as well. So yeah, I couldn't agree more with the gentleman there.
Yeah, I read it and I just thought it speaks entirely of kind of what happens, because historically as a profession we've been very paper based, and I guess the challenge is for firms to kind of walk away from that mindset and really move to a digital way of recording. And I know MTD is a bit of a driver, but I just think generally just being efficient in the way you run your practice, going digital is certainly going to be of value.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I will take it from here. 2 seconds. So hopefully you can all now see my screen. So look, thank you very much, Vipul, for giving me the opportunity to speak to everyone today. I really appreciate that. And as Vipul mentioned there, everyone, really what I want to talk about today is I want to talk about how we as AutoEntry have found sort of bookkeeping firms operating in sort of best practice to using technology to deliver a cost-effective bookkeeping service. So, sorry, just gone past the agenda. So what I want to cover is, how digital tools are transforming the workplace, how bookkeeping technology is driving ROI, understanding AI and automation. And actually understanding AI and automation, the sort of buzzwords that have been spoken about a lot in the industry. And I think some people feel that it's something perhaps that they don't really need to be involved with and understand. But I think it's really pivotal that we are. And then what I'm going to do is just a very quick overview about what we do before answering any questions.
Great. No, that's kind of a good way to kind of get into the conversation. So
Yeah, absolutely. So again, a little bit about myself before we move on. I'm Tom Ports. I'm head of sales here at AutoEntry, and it's actually quite difficult to talk about me without mentioning AutoEntry, because my career really has been inextricably linked with the rise in our company. I've been in the sort of field, accounting software. I've been doing this for about 8 years now, and I actually joined the company at the first iteration of our company 8 years ago. And it was actually our first office was my kitchen table in a small flat outside Dublin.
I know the feeling, Tom.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure a lot of the people that have joined us this morning have really know the feeling as well. It's seeing that their businesses grow, their accounting practices grow from a kitchen table. But how AutoEntry came about and how I came into being part of the company was after finishing my education, I moved to Ireland and I was working in the gyms because that was my passion. Anyway, one day I moved in with an accountant, and I bumped into our current CEO, Brendan Woods. And Brendan was having a conversation with the accountant that I was living with one day. And Brendan started asking about, actually, like, what do you do? Like, what's your actual task, your day to day? And he turned around and he said, oh, I do a lot of data entry tasks. I do a lot of manual data entry, posting into Sage, posting into Excel, etc. And Brendan was quite bewildered at that because he actually thought that an accountant's role would be much more on the business side. And he was actually really interested because he thought that this accountant would be having conversation with business every day and providing advice. And when it transpired that this gentleman was just sitting there doing data entry for not the majority, but a significant minority of his time was spent doing this task, Brendan was bewildered. And I can
and Tom, was this a qualified accountant?
Qualified accountant, yeah.
Wow.
Ooh.
That's not what I signed up to do as a qualified accountant. So
yeah, I know.
I find it a very unusual kind. Maybe he didn't have a choice. I don't know.
Yeah, he was a qualified accountant. A really smart guy as well, really smart guy. And I actually can remember the comments that Brendan said. He said, look, there's got to be a better way to do this. We've got to fix it. So they brought me involved and we started having conversations. And to be honest with you, when I first started, I didn't buy into the accounting thing. Wasn't the thing that excited me. Really what was exciting to me was that I felt with the technology that we had, we could disrupt the industry. And 8 years later, I think it's safe to say that we've done okay. We've done pretty well. But yeah, a quick overview about the company. Ocrex, our parent company, came into being in around about, it was the beginning of 2011 when Ocrex came into being. And we opened the UK office, was opened on the 6th of June, 2012. With that, we had a great product we sold that actually some of you probably have heard of before you've heard of AutoEntry. We had a product called AutoRec, which AutoRec did really well. It was a fantastic solution. Between 2012 to 15, we about 20-25% of the UK market was using AutoRec to capture bank statement data, which we're really proud of. But we realized as well at the same time that we needed to have a vast array of technology, if you will, to add value to our clients. So we pivoted in 2016 to actually May 2016. We started doing AutoEntry. And since 2016, we've now got 2,500 bookkeepers and accountants using AutoEntry. And actually last year has been some really exciting years for us. In August 2017, we launched our Australian office, very close to the guys in Melbourne, actually, the Xero guys there. And just this year, we launched in the United States, and that's where I currently reside in Arizona.
Excellent, excellent. And in terms of, so the firms that you're working with, they're genuinely on a global basis?
Absolutely, yeah, on a global basis. And actually that's been really enriching for my own personal development. And the reason why I say that, Vipul, is because when I've been lucky enough over the past 18 months to, broadly speaking, travel around the world and actually see how different accounting firms, and what I've been able to do to the clients that I still, engage with, is that I've been able to give them that, sort of what I've seen to be best practices from especially clients in Australia. I've been very impressed with, I know you've been to Australia a number of times as well. We've met at conferences, but I've been very impressed with some of the work that the accounting practices have been doing there and the bookkeeping firms.
Yeah, absolutely. I would second that. I think Australia's probably compared, and I know we have got people joining this call from Australia, but I will, it would be fair to say they're 2 to 3 years ahead of the UK currently.
I would definitely agree with that. Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. But that being said, I think I'm always sort of measured with whenever I'm talking to the guys in the UK, because actually what I've found as well is that some of the firms that we engage with and some of the firms that we've done a really robust implementation of AutoEntry, and I know they're using other software as well, of course,
sure.
but actually we're doing some fantastic stuff in the UK as well.
Yeah, really no. Yeah, we see, I guess, in terms of the nature of the type of firms we work with, they tend to adopt technology at an earlier stage, but it worries me about the thousands of firms that actually don't engage with the likes of you or I.
Yeah, I know. It's quite surprising, and it's not necessarily the firms that don't engage. What I find is quite entertaining now, especially Accountex is coming up, and I remember being at last year's Accountex and other shows actually, and I had people coming up to me that we had a sort of brief conversation. And it wasn't that they didn't engage with us; it was that they didn't want to engage with us.
Yeah.
And I didn't view that as a way that they don't want to buy my product. That's irrelevant. Yeah. But I think it's really dangerous that they don't want to engage with us in terms of technology.
Yes.
And that's a real business risk, as I see it.
Yes, very much so. Very much so. And I think anybody who believes that a sole compliance business will have a long-term future, I think it's probably short-lived and limited to perhaps the existing client base, but even that to a lessening degree.
I absolutely agree with you. Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And I think that you have to be not careful, but when you're talking about accounting firms, I think what accountants perhaps don't realize or don't is that not engaging with technology is not just a risk for accounting firms, it's a risk for businesses everywhere.
Yeah.
So when you're providing advice to your clients, you need to be au fait with technology because that's the type of advice they want. But
yeah. No, fantastic.
So I think and feeding on from that, Vipul, I think it's crucial to understand that not only the accountants and bookkeepers and our industry, but I think it's really crucial to understand that we're in a time of great upheaval ourselves. I would say is now, and actually according to the World Economic Forum, that we're in what's considered the fourth industrial revolution. Yeah. So I think previous revolutions have broken humans free from relying on animal power. And really what this revolution is about, it's about using technology to enhance our experience at work and deliver more value. So if we think about this from 1784, Industry 1.0, really that was revolutionized by steam power. Fast forwarded circa 100 years, mass production, assembly lines, this is the nature of industry was changed very radically. And then into more modern times in sort of the sort of late 60s, early 70s, automation, the beginnings of electronics started to change industry. I think what we're in now in Industry 4.0 and the fourth industrial revolution is all about leveraging tech and there's a broad range of technology. Things like artificial intelligence, things like just automation technology, Internet of Things, self-driving cars, these type of things we're going to see that are permeating not just our own industry, but really everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, I'm showing my age a bit now, but I would say the last 5 years, it's probably changed more our profession than in the previous 20. And I think, if anything, the pace is getting faster.
I totally agree. Yeah, and I've got something a little bit further on to that effect.
Okay, cool.
In 2000, if we think about it, 2013, I remember having the conversations I was having there with practices, and they're just radically different. They really are today. They're just radically different.
Yeah.
And that's what I mentioned earlier about the technology isn't just changing the face of accountants, it really is changing the face of business. I mean, if we stop and think for a second, yeah, and I know this is the conversation that's been had widely and it's been in many media outlets, but did we ever anticipate that even 10 years ago, 15 years ago, that the world's largest taxi firm would have no physical cars? Or the world's largest software vendors wouldn't write any of the applications. And even if we think about with our own industry, people like QuickBooks and Xero, as part of the wider ecosystems that we're engaged with, they've acknowledged that they don't write all of the apps. They use people like us to sort of plug gaps, if you will.
Yeah. I think it's about excellence in the various guises, whether it's in OCR or whether it's in building a tool that helps deliver better business advice. I think that's what it boils down to. It's
yeah, and relying on other people, as you said there, relying on other people's expertise to ensure that the end result is as good as it possibly can be for the user. And I was listening to something really, really interesting recently by an early investor in Uber. And I thought it was, I listened to a podcast, and one of the very early investors for Uber was actually speaking at a conference. I can't remember the year, a couple of years before Uber launched. And he was speaking at a conference for National Union or National Workers of Taxi Drivers of America or something like that.
Yeah.
And after the event, he was having conversation with a number of taxi magnates and, just having conversation. And he was telling them about the concept of Uber and how it was going to change the nature of business. And they laughed at him. They said, it's not going to work. How's that going to work? We've been running taxi firms for 20 years. Logistically, you won't be able to just click a button and drivers will be decentralized and you'll be relying on other people's labor and it'll never work. And he revisited those firms, 5 years later, whenever it was, and he realized that those firms were actually worth circa 40% of what they once were.
Yeah. Yeah. No, there was a program recently about the New York yellow cab and the value of is it medallion?
Yeah, the medallions. Yeah.
Yeah. How they dropped remarkably since the advent of Uber. So,
yeah.
And I guess that's equally true of our profession for firms when they're looking at the values that the owners have on their practices. Previously, it was a multiple of revenue, and unless they've engaged in technology, you've got to question whether that value still exists.
Absolutely. And I think it highlights, Vipul, as well, that it was the shunning of technology that were really these people's downfall. They had multi-million taxi firms, and because they were slow to adopt and they oft-times shunned technology, when they were revisited, look, there was a tidal wave that came, and unfortunately, and look, there's a human face to this, but unfortunately they were the people that were left behind.
Yes.
And that's difficult.
Yeah, very much so.
But also as well, I think it's really important, particularly that in our industry, is that we see firms, and I want to talk about this a little bit later, but just to bring it up, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. We see firms that are treating the sort of digital revolution as a gold mine.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I mean, the firms that we see growing faster, so the ones that really embrace technology, really embrace process, and said that the opportunity for us is there because there's a large group of firms that are not taking that ownership of their client base, and we can serve them better and more efficiently and more cost effectively, but because we embrace technology and all that it then brings.
Absolutely. They really are using tech as a gold mine. But principally why they're using tech as a gold mine. And there is a bit of a mindset shift in this as well, but it's all about driving better value for their clients. Yeah. The compliance side, that's the commodity. Yeah. And people don't buy that anymore. I think, I've been selling accounting software for a long time. And what I've found is that when I take a product to a practice, they don't buy me, they don't buy the product, they buy the value, the intrinsic value that it can offer themselves as a practice and themselves as and then, further on their clients as well. But actually, this is what you were just mentioning there about the firms that aren't engaging. And actually, this was a study done by our friends over at Accounting Web. It shows about the migration to the cloud, and actually, I'm quite surprised in a lot of what I see here.
Yeah.
The blue line here, that shows a 50% growth in the adoption of cloud accounting systems among accountants in the last decade. Now, this is UK centric. To be honest with you, in many cases, I'm surprised that it's as high as 50%.
Yeah. Yeah.
What would you say?
I would agree with that. I'm very surprised that it's seen as high as that, because often it's classed as perhaps they're in the cloud, but if you actually ask some firms, they may have a handful of clients on there. So I would question that one. Yeah.
Yeah. And it goes back to what you mentioned earlier about digital and analog. It really does, because as I said, when we talk to the practices that we're working with, it's such in the larger, mid-sized firms, it's such an oddity that we have, they may be using they may have 20 clients in AutoEntry, but they might have 100 bookkeeping clients.
Yeah.
So there's still 80% of their data is still inputted manually, which I find shocking in many cases.
Yeah.
But the red line here indicates I'm surprised by this in many ways as well. The red line here indicates the increase in expense capture apps, cloud bookkeeping tools, and it's here that it's trebled, which in fairness, I can see that, but I think and we can see from the sort of pretty radical growth in our business, particularly in the last couple of years. But, and again, I have to say, I would be very surprised if it wasn't that they were using cloud bookkeeping tools, but they weren't using them for all clients.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what we're seeing here is the growth of the cloud practice, where we're seeing, and we ourselves have truly got some really incredible partners that are tech forward, that are experiencing huge growth year on year due to truly sort of leveraging the cloud. And what we also see, which is really interesting on those partners that we're working with, the sort of tech forward partners, is that a huge chunk of their new name, new business revenue, it's not coming from the compliance side.
Yeah.
It's all coming from the advisory work.
Absolutely. I think better data drives better advice.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I actually heard, and I'll shamelessly steal this from someone at a manager at Xero, and I heard it at last XeroCon, but I think it really resonated with me. And it's something that I've plugged a few times. But the analogy that I heard is that this gentleman said compliance work is like doing the dishes in a restaurant. Yeah. It's absolutely necessary, has to be done.
Yeah.
The only reason that you do it, and the only reason you should do it, is to be serving up the good stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, I thought that was really good. It really sort of hit a note with me.
No, really good. Excellent.
And also, I think what this highlights as well, that you are getting more clients that are moving to the cloud and migrating more of our clients and more accounting practices. And what I think accounting firms need to realize as well is that if they aren't going to be migrating to the cloud, the competition is.
Yes.
There are competitors out there that are absolutely using technology to their advantage, are becoming technologists, and they're using it to work more efficiently and take on new clients and deliver better value to those clients.
Yeah. And would you not sort of say the scalability of service increases? So you've got an existing bookkeeping team, and they're perhaps, let's say the number you quoted, they're looking after 100 clients currently, that it's not without some imagination that same group of people can manage several times that number if they adopted technology.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the most inspiring things that I've seen when I've gone to Australian firms, because I again, plugging them shamelessly because they've done really well.
Yeah.
Some of the firms that I've been going to, let's pick an arbitrary number of, it was, client to staff ratio was, 1 to 50.
Yeah.
And by really engaging with tech and ensuring that they had robust processes and also really repeatable processes. Yeah. Understanding that, developing the process and making sure that they could repeat it at scale time and time again.
Yeah.
With those sort of things in place, they've been able to grow it from one staff to 50 clients to one staff to 75 clients. And I've seen that in a few places, which it's been really, really good to be a part of.
Yeah.
But I think this is really interesting as well. And I think one of the things that is imperative for accountants and bookkeepers is to understand automation and is to understand artificial intelligence. And the reason why is twofold. This first stat here is actually a statistic from Xero, that 45% of accountants and bookkeepers believe practices need to go digital to survive. Which again, I think that's worryingly low. But,
I was going to say 45% is a bit worrying, unless the other 50-odd% are just throwing the towel, then.
Yeah. But again, you do bump into them though. You really do. You still have those conversations, and I won't name, I've been to numerous events, and you bump into them, and it's shocking. Perhaps not as low as 45. That might be a few years out of date, but again, it's certainly shocking.
Yes.
What I think is really interesting as well is if we're going to focus more on the sort of business side of this conversation as well. So the accountants serving their clients. 84% of businesses say artificial intelligence will enable them to sustain a competitive edge. And 70% of businesses look forward to delegating more of the mundane, repetitive aspects of their jobs to artificial intelligence, by extension, wider technology. And the reason why I think this is important for accountants to understand is that what we need to see, what we're going to be seeing, is that businesses will be engaging in artificial intelligence and automation technology. So your clients will be the people that will be interested in these fields. So I think it's really important that accountants and bookkeepers have a cursory knowledge of these type of things, because in this period of industrial revolution that we're going through currently, it's only going one way. And you need to be able to give your clients sort of advice on that, shall we say.
Well, I think this is where it's the client expectations that you will use technology.
Yeah.
I think it's that more than anything else. And certainly the new entrepreneurs are actually already using some of these tools, and then they're looking for their accountant to support them.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think as accountants, accountants are in a really unique place, in the sense that having a deep understanding of the businesses that they service, and also by extension having a really deep understanding of the problems their businesses that they service are facing. I think one of the things that I've seen from a number of firms, and actually it was a firm on the in Florida that I was working with, a member of the Xero Partners Advisory Council. But what they do with some of the advisory services they're giving to their clients is technology consulting.
Yeah.
And I think that's been really valuable for them, and they've done some really good things. And even if we look we don't have to dig too deep to be able to sort of find where we can do that. If we're looking after, I don't know, breweries or pubs or whatever the vertical is, you can go to the QuickBooks ecosystem and the Xero ecosystem. There's circa 600 apps there.
Yeah.
And you can find apps that will provide value to your clients. You can provide technology in that sort of ready-made stack for you that will be able to provide value to those businesses.
And there will be firms out there who have niches where they're really strong, whether that's legal or pubs or restaurants, whatever the space may be, who can actually really add value. I mean, I always, you talked about sort of sort of pubs, etc. But if you think of pubs, restaurants, McDonald's has probably spent hundreds of millions of dollars over decades, knowing when people turn up, when they need to prep, etc. And actually now, for so many dollars per month, an accountant can say, actually plug this in and we'll help you look at the data.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And also as well, in terms of researching these apps that are out there, this is something that engaged young members of staff are going to want to do for the accounting practice. But also, and I think there's a little bit of almost war weariness sometimes when I have conversations with our partners, that they're being told constantly, you know, tech's going to change the nature of the industry, going to change your job. But also, we do have to remain cognizant that technology won't replace the human touch. There's certain things that it just can't do. You know, strategic thinking is one of them. I think just experience, you know, managing and running an accounting firm for X number of years has an absolute tangible benefit over and above technology.
Yes.
So, and that's what I think that there seems to be a little bit of a shift in mindset for some people that I speak to, that the role of the accountant, there's nothing to worry about. It's not going to be replaced by technology. What I see it will be is just enhanced.
Yes.
So what are the key benefits of leveraging a digital solution? I mean, I think it's pretty obvious, you know, reduce operating costs. As we just said there, you know, the client to staff ratio. Digital solutions automate processes, allowing users to perform tasks faster. But actually the points on here that I want to focus on are grow your practice. Practices of the future are growing by using technology. You only have to read one of QuickBooks Firm of the Future to see that. You know, read these case studies from the firms that have grown very radically, or a zero case study in the same breath. You know, read any of them, and you see that they're growing in revenue by leveraging digital solutions. But also as well.
But Tom, the profits probably growing faster than their revenues because they're using technology.
Absolutely, yeah, and they've got the same number of staff, but they're providing better services to more clients. I think it's a cliche sort of win-win though on many fronts. But also as well, I think there's a few things to focus in on here. Is, as I said there, offering lines of new business. Users, if you've automated a lot of the practice, a lot of the more sort of rudimentary compliant-based work. What are you going to do with that time? Well, by focus on delivering value-added services, it's a double win for the client, because the client's not only going to get better value from yourselves as accountants and bookkeepers, but also you're going to be your own profits are going to be growing, as you just mentioned there, Vipul.
Yeah.
And actually, there's some other things that I think are really interesting, and this is actually my experience from a firm in Australia that we were working with recently. And actually, I have to say, in many cases, I think Australia approach life in the work-life balance in Australia is something to be admired in many cases. But I think this is really interesting, is the better work-life balance that leveraging digital solutions will bring. I know I'm not a great candidate. You know, I've often been dubbed a workaholic, and I'm very, very confident that the people joining us today have been dubbed, workaholics. But sometimes I think it's a little silly. Sometimes I feel like what I see is that people could be working for the sake of working.
Yep.
And actually what they're not focused on is they're losing sight of how much value they're bringing to their self and the practice.
Yeah.
I actually met an Australian firm who was working from her smartphone. Yeah, this was when I was over last. I was over a couple of months ago in March. And this bookkeeper was working from her smartphone. She ran her own bookkeeping practice. And it was really interesting to get to have a conversation with her, because the conversation was all geared around, she's living a very sort of flexible life in terms of the hours that she's working. But also, she's had the ability, because she's truly got these processes in place, she's truly leveraging technology, that delivering better value to her clients, and she's delivering a better service to her clients than she was 10 years ago. But she's working so her best life in many cases, if you will.
Yes.
So she's delivering the same, if not more, value to her clients, but has the ability to be much more flexible in many cases. And becoming a trusted business advisor, how do you leverage technology to do that? And we do have all this talk now about how do we pivot from the traditional accountancy practice to the trust, but how do we go about doing it? And I think, and it's my experience from the partners that we've been working with, that using technology to assist doesn't only make this process possible, it makes it, not only make this process easier, it makes it actually possible. And one thing that I would really advise people to do when they're going about initially thinking about how they're going to do this is to try and speak to the experts. Yeah, speak to the experts that have done it, read the case studies of the people that have already achieved it, but also as well is that speak to consultants, speak to people like at QuickBooks Online, speak to people at Xero. These guys have very robust training before they go in, before they start working with clients, and by borrow their experiences that they've found best practice to be with their rockstar clients. So if you're looking to become an advisor and you want to understand how to automate data entry, we would be the people to speak to. Our guys on the ground would have very robust experience in automated data entry for accounting practices. But with that, how does tech allow you to do this? Well, interactive dashboards via cloud accounting software, it offers access and better visibility into clients' data. So with that data in mind, you're able to provide real-time insight into what's happening with the client's accounts. And I can't tell you, in so many cases with us as a company, we're a company that's run by technologists, if our accountant was a bit more proactive in providing us advice with how to deal with certain scenarios, it would have been invaluable to us at the time, particularly at the early stage of our business growing. And users will you'll be able to view accounts and cash flow in real time, to respond to issues and trends faster. And that's really something that I said us as a business could have certainly valued from our accountant when we historically outsourced accounting.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we've got one question, Tom, about inputting invoices, similar speed to using AutoEntry, and then the sort of cost benefit analysis. I mean, my comment on that would be, one, about scalability, and two, also the fact that when it's scanned into a product like yours, a copy of that invoice sits in the accounting system. I mean, that is of incredible value in the future in terms of audit trail, etc. I mean, is there any other things that, other than costs? I know sort of the comment's been about cost, but what are the benefits that you get from using an OCR solution?
Well, I think and that's a really good point, and it's something that we have a conversation with, particularly people that are sort of early on in the adoption curve of OCR technology. They comment on they could type in 50 invoices or 20 invoices faster. And I think we have to explore that on a few levels. Principally, when you're using something like AutoEntry, once you uploaded data, I kind of describe it to clients as set and forget, in the sense that you send data into AutoEntry and you don't have to sit at your PC for the next 2 hours for it to process. I mean, 87% of our data is processed within 2 hours. So you don't have to sit at your PC just sort of, twiddling your thumbs for 2 hours while that data is being processed in the back end.
Yeah.
What I would expect if I was running accounting practice, but that my members of staff were doing some sort of engaged work during that time.
Yeah. So,
and how we would sort of construct the workflow with a lot of our accounting practices is that upload your data at the sort of quieter hours of the day, the dead hours of the day, as I call them. So before you're leaving the office for the day, have your take a scan of all the data and upload it into AutoEntry.
Well, I think, Tom, beyond that, I mean, you can tell me if you think I'm wrong here, but isn't it something that actually you could almost get the client to capture the data, so that actually
Absolutely.
the firm and the team don't have to do it? So one, you get access to that data a lot quicker, and actually once it's in your system, as you say, it goes through a process of being analyzed, by computers to achieve what we want, which is clean, reliable data, which you can then use.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's something as well that you need to be, you know, and we have all this talk about, and you have all these people when you go to conferences sort of selling you accounting software. But what you really need to be careful of is you really need to make sure that when you're buying cloud accounting software or cloud apps, make sure you invest the time in really understanding how the new process is going to look, because the software is only as good as the process that you implement.
It's kind of going back to that thing at the start, the analog and digital. It's kind of, you're operating an analog process in a digital world. And I think that's probably where you're not getting the full benefits of using the product like OCR.
Yeah, absolutely.
So sorry to stop you, but obviously
no worries at all. No, we want to answer them, definitely. But yeah, let's be honest. You know, it does require pivoting to the sort of trusted business advisor and the new accounting practice, the new cloud accounting practice, does require a shift from the traditional mindset. But the question is once you've automated your practice on the compliance side, and you know, so the time spent doing those type of tasks is scaled down, what are you going to do with all the free time? You know, by implementing OCR, what are you going to do with all your free time? And I think the conversation needs to be, and what I've seen to be best practice from the guys that I've been working with, is go back to your client base and explore how you can provide tangible benefits to them. Explore how you can provide more value to them, because that is what businesses will pay for now. Business, They don't want to, it's, as I said, it's going back to the restaurant. You know, they're not paying for you to wash the dishes.
yes.
But also as well, that we have to be careful that, you know, timing's key. This was actually, this graphic here. One of two of you may have seen it at a Zero event before, so I'll give them credit for it. But I saw it and it really resonated with me, because early adopters certainly do always win.
Yeah.
And the traditional thinking in technology adoption, sort of the curve, if you will, is that the laggards and the late adopters and the sort of technological sort of Luddites, if you will catch up over the time. I actually don't think that's going to happen for cloud accounting.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah, I believe what we're going to see happen is that the firms that can offer more value and the firms that are being efficient are going to be the guys that will win. And once they win, I think the clients, because they're getting much more value from their accountants, the clients will be sticky. And I
think it's that, but I think also they will be the advocates for those firms as well, to tell their business friends, actually, this is what our accountant does for us day in, day out, week in, week out. Oh.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I can only talk about ourselves as a business. You know, I've seen us grown from 3 people to 120. And if there were certain times that, particularly as a startup, there were certain times that when there was 3 of us, we were all individually really good at the aspects that we owned. But we could have really had, if someone had come into us to act as a consultant or that trusted business advisor, we would have paid. They could have written a check. You know, they could have written a blank check and said, "Hey, take," you know, and we would have paid what they wanted. Because, you know, there was times as a startup that we really struggled. It was really difficult.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, people who've heard me in the past will know I'm only an accountant because of a man who looked after my parents' business, and what he did transformed our futures. You know, we were kids at the time, but we had a much better life because, you know, there was a man who went and did it. And, he, you know, I just think how he would have been in this world of data, he'd have loved it. He'd have absolutely loved it. And because all he ever did was talk about stuff to clients. He retired at 55 because he could.
Hey, that's, yeah. No, I've heard that story. And you're right. It's for those of you that haven't, I urge you to have a call with Vipul just for 10 minutes just to hear it, because it's a great story. But look, and again, what are the challenges in adopting new tech, and how do we overcome them? I think is really important. And how have I found, and how have we seen that firms have overcome these challenges when it comes to adopting new tech? Lack of tech awareness, that's a big one, particularly when you're going into the traditional accounting firms. And it's tough. It really can be tough. One of the ways that I've seen this overcome, and I've seen this overcome quite successfully, is they've picked a champion. They picked a champion in the practice and tasked them with spending some of their week engaging with vendors, people like ourselves, in engaging the ecosystem and just trying to get an understanding. And I think that's really worked, is pick a cloud accounting champion in the office that's going to own it. And once a week, task them with giving the presentation to the rest of the team. There's one that we get sometimes. Actually, we've getting this a lot in the US at the moment, where cloud accounting is at the really early days. It's kind of equivalent to the UK in 2012, probably is fair to say, is that there's not enough hours in the day. I'm kind of bullish in my response to this because, look, make time. I'm sorry, just make time. If you can't see that this is a business risk and you're not allowing enough time to truly understand how tech's going to help you, then, that's no excuse. It's no excuse. Find the time.
Yeah.
But actually, what I've found is, and especially going into the larger firms that I've dealt with, is the resistance from employees, resistance from management. I'm a little bit more sort of ruthless on the resistance from management because, look, it's their job. They need to be bought into this idea. It's the future. On the employee side, I understand it, and how I've seen that some best practice that firms have adopted is that the employees that are championing cloud accounting software, they're the people that are being celebrated. And I think it's sort of, it rises the sort of urge for people to get involved because they're realizing, look, these are the people that are sort of getting airtime. These are the people that are being celebrated. And I found that to actually work quite well.
Yeah, no, I think encouraging that change, and I take your point about a champion, but it then has to be a group, and then slowly, then almost it's a natural thing as part of the firm that actually we have technology as a way of delivering service. So yeah, no, great.
Yeah, and the final thing is budget. Is that the only thing I would say about budgets is everyone thinks they have a budget to spend on tech, or if they haven't, they will maybe put one together. The only thing I'll say about it is do spend it. Because we have lots and lots of practices that tell us they have budget for automating the data entry and using our service, and then sometimes when it comes to crunch time, they're actually not willing to spend it. So if you've got budget for tech, make sure you spend it. And look, there's a few factors to consider when selecting technology for your firm. Think about the challenges you're facing. Think about the opportunities that you want to uncover. Think about your existing bookkeeping clients. Think about segmenting your client base. Think about the clients that you can get to be cloud ready quicker than others and get them on as quickly as possible, and start learning about all of what works well and the sort of potential pitfalls. And also as well, with regards to having that cloud accounting champion in the practice, like a cloud account manager, when you're trialing the software, again, make sure you really engage with it. And make sure you engage with it, trial it very robustly, and make sure you engage with it in a number of levels, in the sense that engage with the software and, of course, use your trial and have a deep understanding of the functionality that it can offer you, because there's slight nuances between software packages that can actually make a really big difference to the client. But also as well, when you're trialing the software, trial out the process around it. So as we mentioned there, using ourselves as an example, we'll be able to think about when you're getting clients set up, emailing their data through to you instead of dropping off that bag of rubbish, if you will, or getting clients to use their mobile phone to take pictures of receipts as they're on the go and just send the data through to our software that way. So think about the process as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's really key. Get the clients to do as much of the work as possible. It will help them. It'll help them in the end. So I think it's really important to do that.
Absolutely. And there's three things that I would just say keep in mind. Think about when you're looking for a tech solution and justifying the spend of it. Think about the challenges that you want to address. Think about challenges potentially sort of historically you had with scalability. Think about the challenges you had around servicing the clients, particularly during peak season. Think about how this technology can reduce labor costs or streamline existing. And I think this is the most important here. Think about how this new technology will improve your service delivery to your clients and delivering a fantastic client experience for them.
I think, Tom, the last bit, particularly because lots of firms have probably historically avoided offering bookkeeping services.
Yeah.
That actually this is almost a new world for many firms. It's almost, they've reluctantly offered bookkeeping in the past, but actually to deliver the value added services in the future, they need to have the data, one, reliable, and two, up to date constantly, to be able to actually have those good, intelligent conversations.
Yeah, I had a practice in Birmingham. It was a great story. This is actually a while ago now. This is about 18 months ago. And this practice in Birmingham, he was actually a sole practitioner. It was a bookkeeping firm. And he worked in another practice for a number of years. And he was the cloud accounting champion there. He was doing really good stuff for the practice. But actually, after a while, he saw a huge gap because he realized that the rest of the firm wasn't adopting technology at the same rate that he was. And he actually just left and set up his own practice. Yeah. And it was about 18 months ago, actually. Yeah. And he went Xero only. And he didn't service any clients that were not using Xero. And he now, I haven't spoken to him in a while, actually, but he now, when I last spoke to him, he was running a very successful practice. And it was just himself. Yeah. Himself. Because his client to himself ratio, I think he had 100 clients at the time. Yeah. And everything was organized. Everything was sorted. He used us for the data capture, he used Xero for the general ledger, for the bookkeeping aspect. And I'm more than confident he was using something like Futurely out the back or Spotlight reporting or something.
Yeah. No, fantastic.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. So we've got about 8 minutes left. So hopefully
8 minutes left. Okay.
Think of your questions and come in so we can deal with them when we get to that point. That'd be great.
Okay, so final 6 ways tech can streamline bookkeeping. I'll kind of go through these quickly. Automate data entry. Hey, whether in the data capture space, read our reviews online. We're the top rated app in Xero Store and QuickBooks as well. So we're of course those guys. Cloud accounting. QuickBooks are great at this, Xero, Sage, all of these guys. Virtual assistant, diary and calendar management. Personally, I couldn't live without this now. Tools like Calendly, I think they're fantastic.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm the same. I just, when people say, oh, can I have a meeting, Vipul? I just send them the link.
Yeah, give that to your clients. Give that to your clients and say, hey, if you want a 15-minute call with me, all you need to do is schedule something in Calendly. I think it's invaluable. I really do. Digital meetings, if you're not doing this, you really, really should be. And this is on the back end of Calendly as well. Things like Zoom, I found Zoom to be the best. I've worked with numerous in the past. That can absolutely help you streamline bookkeeping and, of course, more importantly, engage with your clients better. And, of course, as I mentioned as well, custom reports, dashboards. Spotlight are great at this. Recently are great at this. So there's some guys that you can talk to as well. So I was going to take everyone through a quick demonstration. I won't because I'm conscious that we only have about 6 minutes left. If you do want to reach out and get in touch with me, you can go to AutoEntry.com. All of our contact details are there. Or find me on Twitter, Tom_AutoEntry, and I will happily organize a demonstration for you there. Alternatively, you can reach me at tom.port@autoentry.com.
Yeah, we've just had one question come in, Tom.
Great.
About where a client send a PDF that includes multiple invoices.
Yep.
Does AutoEntry cope with that?
Absolutely. It's no problem at all. And if you remember what I said earlier, there's some nuances between what the different apps do and where they specialize. Just to straight answer the question, if a client has a PDF that has multiple invoices on it, you can send that to AutoEntry, and AutoEntry will pass those invoices out. We have the intelligence in our recognition engine to be able to say, this is a single page invoice and this belongs to Vodafone, and this is a multi-page invoice and this belongs to ABC supplier. So yes, that's one sort of nuance of what we do.
Yeah.
I suppose the second would be around our line item capture and our line item memorization, which I think is awesome. It just allows us to capture all of the line items from any bill, any receipt, and also remember where they're coded, which is really
would that help, for example, clients that are trying to have stock control because it knows it's 50
absolutely
weeks, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. If you have any clients that are stock control, or any clients that just want to understand in their bookkeeping package exactly what you purchase goods for. So not only just show that you purchased goods from ABC supplier, but actually that you purchased some hard hats, some high-vis vests, some hammers, nails, whatever it was. Or we've been capturing bank statements for so long that when we started developing to capture invoices, receipts, purchase invoices, sales invoices, we'd always captured line items on bank statements. So it just made sense for us to do the purchase side as well.
Fantastic. No, that's really useful. Really useful.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Okay. Did you have anything else that you wanted to kind of cover off, Tom? I think it's been a great conversation. And it's more about what you can do with the data more than how the product works per se. And I think it's really important that we use these webinars to actually share what we think is happening in the world.
Absolutely. I really enjoyed it, actually, Vipul. It's been a great opportunity, for me to sort of empty my brain out a little bit in terms of what I found to work for, because we do really work with some truly inspiring firms, and we've seen some really great things happen. So look, but you're right. It's absolutely about using tech to automate the compliance work, and then doing something valuable with the data that you've received.
Yeah.
And I see that as helping your clients, help them grow successful businesses.
Yeah.
That's what you guys became accountants for. So. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And I'd just like to say thank you so much, Tom, for sharing your morning with us. I think it's been great. And so all I was going to say is thank you so much. Hopefully we've answered any questions. You've got Tom's details. We will be having more webinars, so keep an eye on our website for those. Just for the benefit of those who don't know who we are and what we do compliance outsourcing, and a lot of the firms that we work with include firms that use AutoEntry to automate that product. And we talked about scaling bookkeeping. That's what we help firms do. Oh, hang on, I've got another question coming through. Oh, great webinar. So from one of the delegates. So
thanks.
And just a reminder, you're at Accountex, we're at Accountex, so please come and talk to us whilst we're there. So and really kind of meet the people behind the business.
I'd love you. Yeah, absolutely. Come say hello, because I'm going back to the States. So I love when I'm back in the UK. I probably know a lot of you that have attended anyway, but I love seeing everyone again. So yeah, please come say hello to me, guys.
Fantastic. Right. Thanks again, and see you soon.
Yeah. Cheers, Vipul.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.